There's been a ton of buzz around the Nikon ZR ever since it was first announced. And now that it's finally out, a lot of people are asking the same question. Is it actually worth it? Does it live up to all that hype? Or is it just another over-marketed release? In this video, we're breaking it all down. The good, the bad, and my honest take on whether the Nikon ZR is a camera you should buy. Let's start things off on a good note, because there's a lot to love about the Nikon ZR. First off, performance. You're getting up to 6K 60p 12-bit raw internal recording, plus 4K at 120p if you want that slow motion look, though there is a bit of a crop in that mode. Having that extra resolution and raw flexibility gives you tons of room to work with in post. Next, R3D RAW support. This is a huge deal. You're shooting 12-bit RAW in the RedWideGamut color space with log 3G10 gamma, which means incredible color depth and dynamic range. It makes the ZR a perfect B or even C camera for RED users, since it integrates beautifully into that workflow. Then there's audio. 32-bit float built right in. No external recorder, no stress over peaking or clipping. Just clean, reliable audio, whether you're using the internal mic, a hot shoe mic, or the 3.5mm input. For solo shooters or small crews, this is a massive time saver. Speaking of the hot shoe, this is actually Nikon's first camera with a digital hot shoe, which means you can use accessories like a Tascam top handle for direct XLR input right into the camera. That's a big step forward for Nikon's video ecosystem. You can also now load custom 3D LUTs directly onto the ZR. This is great for previewing your look while shooting, especially in R3D mode. It's not perfect yet, since it doesn't work with N-Log, but it's a fantastic start, and I hope Nikon expands it in future updates. Next up, stabilization. The ZR gives you up to 7.5 stops of in-body image stabilization. That makes handheld shots, pans, or even subtle moves feel buttery smooth without needing a rig. And one of Nikon's secret weapons, the Z-mount. It's the largest mount with the shortest flange distance in its class. Translation, you can adapt almost any lens to it. For cinematographers who like to mix and match lenses, that's a huge advantage. Lastly, the body itself. It's lightweight, compact, and easy to balance on a gimbal, yet still feels solid in hand. You've got accessory cages available if you need more mounting options, and that 4-inch 1000 nit screen in DCI-P3 color is bright enough that you don't even need an external monitor in most cases. So yeah, the ZR brings a lot to the table, but of course it's not all perfect. So let's talk about where it falls short. First up, the screen. It's bright, it's sharp, and it's almost good enough to replace an external monitor. Almost. But the problem is, it's missing two key tools: false color and anamorphic D-squeeze. Those are features most filmmakers rely on, and without them, you'll probably still want to use an external monitor. Hopefully Nikon adds them in a future firmware update, because it's so close to being perfect. Next, the compact design. In keeping the body small and lightweight, Nikon had to make a few compromises. You've got a micro SD card slot as your second card option, which means you can only record RAW internally to one slot. And instead of a full-size HDMI, you get a micro HDMI port, which isn't ideal for professional setups. There are also no built-in mounting points on the body itself. So if you want to attach accessories like a monitor, handle, or wireless system, you'll need to invest in a cage. Another limitation, no external SSD recording. That would have completely solved the storage issue and allowed for longer recording times without swapping cards. Hopefully that's something Nikon considers down the road. Then there's the card and battery placement. Both are located on the bottom of the camera, which can make things tricky if you've got the ZR mounted on a tripod or a gimbal. You'll likely have to remove it to swap cards or batteries. Not a deal breaker, but definitely inconvenient. And finally, no open gate recording. Now this might not matter to everyone, but as more cinema cameras start offering it, it's something Nikon should look into. Having that full sensor readout is a big advantage for certain workflows, especially if you're shooting content meant for multiple aspect ratios. The ZR's negatives aren't deal breakers, but they do remind you that this camera isn't trying to be everything. No camera system is perfect, and the Nikon ZR is no exception. It doesn't check every box for every cinematographer, but what it does deliver is an incredible amount of performance in a small, affordable body. A lot of reviewers are comparing it to cameras like Sony's FX3 or Canon's C50, and honestly, that makes sense. They're all compact cinema cameras targeting the same audience. But here's the thing: price. The FX3 comes in around $4,300, the C50 about $3,900, and the ZR just $2,200. That's nearly half the cost. And for what it offers, that's an incredible value. So, is it worth buying? Yes, absolutely. The Nikon ZR is a fantastic choice for a few types of shooters. If you're budget conscious, you won't find better value in this price range. It punches way above its weight class. If you're a RED user looking for a reliable B or C camera, the R3D integration makes this an easy fit for your workflow. And if this is your first cinema or video-centric camera, the ZR is an amazing place to start. It gives you all the tools to grow, learn, and evolve before you ever outgrow the camera itself. So while it's not perfect, it's powerful, flexible, and, for its price, it's one of the smartest buys you can make right now. Thanks for sticking around until the end. If you found this video helpful and want to learn more about Nikon, RED, and cinematic workflows, make sure to subscribe. It really helps support the channel.